The sky just caught fire and you're not ready. You see that flash on the horizon? That brilliant white light that just painted your entire neighborhood in stark shadows? That's not a transformer blowing. That's not the world's worst gender reveal party. That's a nuclear detonation, and you've got maybe 30 seconds before the shockwave arrives to remind you that your emergency preparedness plan consisted of 2 cans of beans and hoping really hard. Most survival videos assume you've got a concrete bunker stocked with 15 years of freeze-dried beef stroganoff and a library of survival manuals. You don't. You've got a basement, if you're lucky. Maybe just a bathroom. Maybe you're standing in a Walmart parking lot wondering why your phone just died and why everyone's staring at that mushroom cloud like it's some kind of twisted fireworks finale. Here's the reality check. The ultra-rich already evacuated to their luxury bunkers in New Zealand. The government officials are in hardened facilities. The military has protocols. You've got your wits, your home, and about 15 minutes to make decisions that will determine whether you see next month. Welcome to nuclear war for people without trust funds. This isn't a guarantee. This isn't a magic formula. This is the best scientific guidance available for maximizing your survival chances when you don't have specialized infrastructure. This is what government agencies actually tell you to do. This is what the physics and biology dictate. This is your playbook when the unthinkable becomes unavoidable. Stay sharp, stay inside, stay alive. Let's go. Rule number 1. The blast doesn't care about your plans. The moment you realize it's happening, your mammalian brain will do 2 things simultaneously. First, it'll freeze like a computer trying to process an impossible error. Second, it'll make you want to stare directly at that pretty light on the horizon because curiosity is hardwired into your DNA. Do not look at the flash. That pretty light will cook your retinas like eggs on Arizona asphalt in July. Flash blindness is instant and can be permanent depending on distance and your exposure angle. Your ancestors survived by being curious. You'll survive by being smart enough to override that instinct. Close your eyes, shield your face with your arms, drop to the ground if you're outside. The blast wave is coming, traveling at several hundred miles per hour, and it will throw cars like they're die-cast toys in a toddler's tantrum. You've got one job in the first 15 minutes. Get inside a real structure. Not inside your car. Cars are metal boxes that conduct heat and offer 0 protection from radiation. Not inside a tent. Not under a tree. Inside an actual building with walls thicker than your denial about geopolitics. Basement? You just won the survival lottery. Ground floor interior room in a brick or concrete building? Good enough. Your apartment balcony? Congratulations, you're about to become atmospheric debris with a great view. Distance yourself from windows immediately. Glass is about to transform into thousands of tiny missiles traveling at supersonic speeds. Outer walls? Same problem, just with more concrete chunks and rebar. You want mass between you and the outside world. Furniture, concrete, thick walls, books, anything that isn't air. This isn't the time for recording Instagram stories about how it's literally the end of the world. This is the time to activate primal survival instinct that kept your ancestors alive during every previous catastrophe humanity faced. Move fast, move with purpose, don't look back. Don't retrieve your phone from the car. Don't grab your wallet. Your life is the only asset that matters in the next 60 seconds. If you're in a multi-story building, go down, not up. Radiation decreases with mass overhead. A basement with earth above it is the best possible location. A ground floor interior room is second best. Every floor up is exponentially worse. The blast is just the opening act, the flashy beginning that gets everyone's attention. The real killer, the thing that determines who lives and who becomes a statistic, is what comes next. The invisible enemy, the one you can't see or fight or negotiate with. Welcome to Fallout.
The first 48 hours, your apartment is now a shelter. You made it inside, your heart's pounding, your hands are shaking, you're alive! Congratulations, you've completed the tutorial level. Now comes the hard part. Staying alive for the next 2 days while radioactive death snow falls from the sky. Here's what's happening outside right now. The nuclear fireball vaporized everything at ground zero. Buildings, cars, trees, people, all transformed into superheated plasma and microscopic particles that got sucked up into the mushroom cloud. Now all that vaporized matter, loaded with radioactive isotopes, is falling back to Earth as fallout.
It's like snow if snow was made of cancer and decay and dissolved futures. Before you shuffle deeper into your shelter like a contaminated zombie, you need to decontaminate. Strip. Outer layer of clothing comes off right now. Shoes stay by the door. Jacket, shirt, pants, everything that touched the outside air after the blast. You're shedding up to 90% of radioactive contamination just by getting naked and leaving those clothes in your entryway. It's the least sexy strip show of your life, but it might save it. The science here is beautifully simple. Radioactive fallout is just dust. Tiny particles of matter that emit radiation. The particles stick to fabric and skin. Remove the particles, remove most of the radiation source. You're not radioactive yourself unless you ate or breathed in the particles. Your clothes are contaminated, your skin might have particles on it, your internal organs are fine unless you ingested fallout. Wipe yourself down with a damp cloth or towel. Face, hands, exposed skin, hair, be thorough, but quick. Do not shower yet. Do not waste clean water on a full shower. You'll need every drop for drinking over the next 2 weeks. This isn't a spa day at the apocalypse resort. This is battlefield decontamination using whatever you've got. Now, seal your shelter like your life depends on it, because it does. Find the room in your home with the fewest exterior walls and no windows. Basement room? Perfect. You're already ahead of the curve. No basement, interior bathroom, closet, or hallway. The goal is maximizing mass between you and the outside world. Mass stops gamma radiation. Air does absolutely nothing. Grab duct tape, plastic sheeting, heavy garbage bags, wet towels, anything that blocks airflow. Seal gaps around doors. Cover vents with plastic and tape. Turn off HVAC systems, furnaces, air conditioning units. You're not worried about fresh air circulation right now. You're worried about fallout dust sneaking in like the world's deadliest glitter, the kind that gives you acute radiation syndrome instead of annoying your friends. If you've got a roll of plastic sheeting and duct tape, you're golden. Tape plastic over door frames, over vents, over any gap where air flows. If you don't have plastic sheeting, use garbage bags cut open. If you don't have garbage bags, use wet towels stuffed into gaps. Wet fabric is better than nothing because it traps particles. The science is just physics. Radioactive particles are dust. Keep the dust out, keep most of the radiation exposure down. It's not a force field from Star Trek. It's not magic. It's just preventing particulate matter from entering your breathing space. You're creating a positive pressure environment using nothing but plastic and hope. Turn on your battery-powered radio immediately. AM, FM, shortwave, whatever receives emergency broadcasts. This is your only link to the outside world now. Your phone is probably dead, cell towers are down, internet's gone. But good old radio waves still work because they're simple and resilient. Official broadcasts will tell you when the initial fallout has passed, when radiation levels are dropping, when evacuation routes are available, what zones are safe, or safer, or less immediately fatal. The government planned for this scenario. Emergency broadcast systems exist. Authorities will communicate if they can. Your job is to listen and follow instructions. You're staying put for 48 hours minimum, maybe 72, maybe longer depending on your distance from the blast. The fallout cloud is dumping the worst of its radioactive payload right now, in the first few hours after detonation. Going outside during this period is like gargling drain cleaner while smoking cigarettes in a chemical plant. The dose rate outside is astronomical, unsurvivable, lethal within hours or even minutes depending on proximity to ground zero. This is your new reality for the next 2 days. 4 walls, dim light, high anxiety, and the sound of your own breathing. You're basically living in the most depressing episode of The Walking Dead ever filmed, except the walkers are invisible, made of ionizing radiation, and they're everywhere outside simultaneously. Time to wait. Time to ration. Time to hope the engineers who designed nuclear emergency protocols knew what they were doing.
The invisible enemy. Radiation physics for desperate people. Let's talk about the thing that wants to kill you now that the blast is past. Radiation doesn't care about your political beliefs. It doesn't care that you recycled or voted or donated to charity or were kind to animals. It doesn't care about your hopes or dreams or the people who love you. It's just physics doing what physics does. Ionizing atoms, breaking molecular bonds, ripping electrons away from nuclei, and shredding your DNA like a paper shredder set to maximum chaos. When high-energy particles or electromagnetic waves pass through your body, they create ions. Ions are chemically reactive. They damage cell structures. They break DNA strands. Your body can repair some of this damage, but if the dose is high enough, the damage overwhelms your cellular repair mechanisms. Cells die, organs fail, you get sick. Very sick, and depending on the dose, you die. Here's the good news, the one beam of light in this darkness. Fallout loses 99% of its killing power in about 2 weeks. Radioactive decay is exponential. The most dangerous isotopes have short half-lives, which means they decay quickly. After 7 hours, the radiation level drops to about 10% of the initial intensity. After 2 days, it's down to 1%. After 2 weeks, it's 1% of 1%. The curve is steep. Time is literally healing this wound atom by atom, decay event by decay event. This is why the stay inside for 2 weeks rule exists. You're not hiding forever. You're waiting for the worst of the radioactive isotopes to decay into less dangerous forms. You're letting physics work in your favor for once. But here's the critical variable that determines everything: where you are relative to ground zero. Your distance from the blast doesn't just determine your immediate survival from heat and shockwave, it determines your entire survival strategy for the next month. Let's break down the zones, and yes, this is going to sound like a Fallout game skill tree, except it's real and there are no save points. Zone 1, the inner circle of hell, 0 to 5 miles from ground zero. If you're in this zone, the blast probably killed you. The thermal pulse ignited everything flammable. The shockwave collapsed buildings, overpressure turned windows into flying guillotines and walls into shrapnel. But let's say you survived. Maybe you were in a reinforced basement. Maybe you were in a subway tunnel. Maybe physics smiled on you in the cruelest possible way by letting you live in the most irradiated zone. Your building is compromised. Walls cracked, roof partially gone, structural integrity is a dark joke. Radiation levels outside are apocalyptic, measured in hundreds of roentgens per hour. This is unsurvivable territory for long-term sheltering. Your survival strategy: find the deepest, most stable cover you can immediately. A basement, a subway station, anything underground with mass overhead. Stay there for the first 6 to 12 hours while the absolute worst of the fallout descends. This is peak danger time. The hot particles are settling, the dose rate is maximum. Moving now is death. After those first critical hours, you need to evacuate if physically possible. Not toward the blast crater, not downwind where the fallout plume traveled, perpendicular to the wind direction. Move sideways relative to the fallout path, ideally upwind if you can determine wind direction. Your goal is reaching Zone 2 or Zone 3. Distance is survival. Every mile you put between yourself and ground zero decreases your radiation exposure exponentially. This is Mad Max territory, except you're not worried about water wars yet, you're worried about gamma rays and not collapsing from acute radiation syndrome before you reach safety. Zone 2, the danger belt, 5 to 20 miles out. You felt the blast. Windows shattered, the house shook, maybe walls cracked, but the structure is still standing, still mostly intact. Fallout is your primary threat now. Heavy radioactive contamination, dose rates in the tens of roentgens per hour initially, dropping over time. This is survivable if you shelter properly. If your structure is stable, you stay put for 10 to 14 days minimum. This is the shelter-in-place zone. You seal your interior room, you stack shielding, you ration supplies, you wait for the decay curve to work its magic. Do not leave unless your shelter fails structurally, your water runs out, or you have confirmed via Geiger counter that dose rates have dropped to survivable levels for brief excursions. Even then, you minimize time outside. Evacuation in this zone is a last resort, and if you go, you move intelligently. Avoid low-lying areas where fallout collects like rain and puddles. Stay on high ground when possible. Move towards Zone 3 if you can determine direction and have protective equipment. This is your Last of Us scenario. Every decision is calculated risk. Every supply matters. Every additional hour of exposure stacks onto your cumulative dose. Zone 3, the far wastes, 20+ miles out. The blast didn't flatten your neighborhood. You didn't feel the heat pulse, maybe you heard a distant rumble, maybe you saw the flash. The shockwave was minimal. Your threat is delayed fallout carried by wind patterns. The radioactive cloud is drifting, spreading, depositing its poison downwind from the blast site. If you're in the fallout plume path, you are in danger. If you're outside the plume, you are relatively safe, but still cautious. Your job: seal your home, stay inside, monitor radio broadcasts. Radiation levels will rise as fallout arrives, then gradually decrease over days and weeks. This is the long game. This is where patience and preparation beat panic and improvisation. If authorities say stay put for 3 weeks, you stay put for 3 weeks. The stay put rule applies until radiation levels are confirmed safe for extended outdoor exposure. This is your best case scenario in a worst case event. You have time, you have options, you can survive if you're smart and prepared.
Shielding 101. Building walls out of desperation. Gamma radiation, the main killer from fallout, is electromagnetic radiation, high-energy photons. They pass through air like air doesn't exist, because air is mostly empty space at the atomic level. But dense materials slow down and absorb gamma rays. The denser the material, the more effective the shielding. This is called attenuation, and it's your best friend in the post-blast world. Concrete blocks about 50% of gamma radiation per few inches of thickness. Lead is better, around 90% reduction per inch, but you're not sitting on a lead stockpile unless you worked in radiology. Steel helps, water helps, dirt helps, books help, furniture helps, even canned food stacked up helps. The rule of halves is your mental math shortcut. Every time you double your shielding thickness, you cut the radiation dose in half. 1 layer of bricks, half the dose. 2 layers, quarter dose. 4 layers, 1/16th dose. 8 layers, 1/256th dose. The math is exponential, which finally works in your favor instead of against you. Start building your nest immediately. Push your couch against the exterior wall of your shelter room. Stack books, heavy ones, encyclopedia sets if you're old school, textbooks, anything with mass. Move your refrigerator into the hallway to create a barrier. It's full of food and weighs hundreds of pounds. That's mobile shielding. If you have access to outside areas safely before peak fallout arrives, fill trash bags or heavy-duty garbage bags with dirt or sand. Each bag is 50 pounds of shielding material. Stack them around your shelter area. Create a barrier between you and the exterior walls. Your water supply can double as shielding. 5-gallon water jugs arranged around your sleeping area provide both hydration and radiation protection. Water attenuates gamma rays reasonably well, and you need the water anyway. Large appliances are gold mines. Washing machines, dryers, dishwashers, all made of steel and internal components. If you can move them with help, position them strategically. Every bit of mass counts. You're building a DIY radiation bunker out of IKEA furniture, college textbooks, and desperation. It's not pretty, it's not elegant, but the physics works. Gamma rays don't care about aesthetics. They care about electron density and atomic number. Your improvised wall of junk has both. Create a nest in the center of your shelter space, the spot with maximum distance from all exterior walls. Pile your shielding materials around this central position. Make it comfortable enough to sleep, because you're spending days or weeks here, but prioritize protection over comfort. You can be uncomfortable and alive, or comfortable and dead. The science is beautifully simple. More stuff between you and the outside equals less radiation reaching your body, equals lower cumulative dose, equals higher chance of survival without severe radiation sickness. Physics doesn't discriminate. It doesn't play favorites. It just calculates. Make the calculation work for you. Water, the one resource you absolutely cannot improvise away. Human body is roughly 60% water. Your cells need water for every biological process: metabolism, temperature regulation, waste removal, blood circulation, brain function, everything. You can survive 3 weeks without food if you're healthy. You can survive about 3 days without water, maybe 4 if you're lucky and inactive. After that, your kidneys fail, your blood thickens, your brain swells, and you die in agony. Dehydration is not a pleasant way to go. You need 1 gallon per person per day minimum. That's for drinking and basic hygiene. 2 weeks of sheltering means 14 gallons per person. Family of 4, 56 gallons. That's a lot of water. Bottled water is safe. If it was sealed before the blast, the radiation didn't touch it. Fallout particles can't penetrate plastic or glass containers. Open the bottle, drink the water. Simple. Water in sealed containers in your home is safe. Your hot water heater is a 40 to 50 gallon reservoir of drinkable water, just sitting in your basement or utility closet. That's your emergency reserve. Know how to drain it before you need to. Most models have a drain valve at the bottom. Turn off power or gas first, let it cool if it was heating, then open the valve into clean containers. Toilet tank water is surprisingly usable if it's clean and hasn't been treated with chemical cleaners or blue tablets. Not the bowl, the tank. That's fresh water that refills from your supply line. A few gallons per toilet in your home. Open water sources after a nuclear blast? contaminated. Rivers, lakes, ponds, all exposed to fallout. Rainwater collected after the blast, liquid fallout. You're literally drinking water that was in the mushroom cloud. Don't do it unless dying of thirst is your alternative. But here's the trick, the one piece of chemistry that might save you if you're desperate. Distillation. Boiling water kills bacteria and viruses. It does not remove radioactive particles. Those particles stay in the pot because they don't evaporate. But if you collect the steam and condense it, you're separating pure H2O from contaminated water. Steam doesn't carry radioactive particles, just pure water vapor. The radioactive isotopes, heavy elements like cesium and strontium, stay behind in the boiling pot. You're exploiting the difference in boiling points. Water evaporates at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Cesium-137 doesn't evaporate until over 1200 degrees. You're not reaching that temperature in your improvised still. Create a makeshift distillation rig. A pot with contaminated water, a heat source, a bowl or cup inside the pot slightly elevated so it doesn't touch the water, and a lid or plastic wrap covering the pot with a weight in the center creating a low point above the collection cup. As water boils, steam rises, hits the covering, condenses, and drips down the slope into the collection cup. You've just made clean water using high school chemistry and apocalypse ingenuity. It's slow, it's energy intensive, it's not perfect. But it works. The condensed water will have negligible radioactivity compared to the source water. You've reduced your radiation intake from water by 90% or more. Alternative: if you've got a pressure cooker or any sealed container with a spout, you can create a more efficient still. Heat the contaminated water, let steam exit through the spout, cool the steam with wet cloth or air, collect the condensed pure water. Same principle, better efficiency. Water is life. Guard it. Ration it carefully. Don't waste it on morale-boosting showers or washing dishes. Drink it. That's the priority. You can be dirty and alive. You can't be dehydrated and alive for long.
Food. Eating in a radioactive wasteland. Your food supply determines how long you can shelter without risking outside exposure. Every meal from storage is one less reason to open that door. Sealed food is safe, completely safe. Canned goods, boxed goods, vacuum-sealed packages, anything that was sealed before the bombs dropped. Radiation doesn't penetrate most packaging materials significantly. The food inside is pristine. The container's exterior might have fallout dust on it. Wipe it clean before opening. Don't cross-contaminate. Fresh food that was exposed to fallout? Contaminated. Fruits and vegetables from your garden that were growing during the blast? Radioactive. The plants absorbed fallout particles or the particles settled on the surface. Do not eat them. Livestock that were outside? Walking radiation sponges. They breathed fallout dust. They drank contaminated water. They ate contaminated grass. Their meat is radioactive. Don't eat them even if you find them dead, especially if you find them dead. You're living on whatever non-perishables you stockpiled or can scavenge from sealed sources. Canned beans, rice, pasta, peanut butter, crackers, cereal. The diet of preppers, college students, and paranoid introverts. No refrigeration after power dies. Your fridge will stay cold for about 4 hours if you don't open it. Your freezer might last 24 hours if full and unopened. After that, perishables spoil. Eat the perishables first if you can safely do so in the first day. Then switch to non-perishables for the long haul. Canned goods last years. Check dates, but most cans are safe well past their printed date. High-acid foods like tomatoes have shorter shelf life. Low-acid foods like beans can last decades if undamaged. Botulism is a risk with severely damaged or swollen cans. Avoid those. Carbohydrates first. Your body needs energy. Rice and pasta are calorie-dense. Proteins second. Canned fish, beans, nuts. Fats are crucial. Peanut butter, oils, nuts again. Your body needs all 3 macronutrients, but it can survive on suboptimal balance for weeks. Ration carefully. Calculate your total food supply, divide by number of people, divide by number of days you need to shelter. That's your daily allowance. Stick to it. Hunger is temporary, starvation is permanent. The average sedentary human needs about 1,500 to 2,000 calories per day minimum to maintain basic function. You can survive on less for a while. Your body will burn fat stores and eventually muscle, but you'll survive. Olympic athletes eat 10,000 calories a day. You're not running marathons in your sealed shelter. You're conserving energy and existing. 2 weeks on minimal rations is doable. Uncomfortable, but doable. Your body is designed by evolution to handle periodic famine. You're activating ancient survival metabolic pathways. Thank your ancestors who survived ice ages and crop failures. The Geiger counter, your only honest friend in the apocalypse. Radiation is invisible, colorless, odorless, tasteless, silent. You can't see gamma rays. You can't hear alpha particles. You can't smell beta radiation. You can't feel it cooking your cells until you're already critically dosed, and the symptoms appear hours or days later. By the time you feel radiation sickness, the damage is done. Your fate is sealed. You're just waiting to see how bad it gets. A Geiger counter measures ionizing radiation in real time. It clicks when radiation ionizes the gas inside its detector tube. The faster the clicks, the higher the dose rate. It's audio feedback for the invisible. It's your only reliable way to know if that door opens to survivability or certain death. The critical number, 1 Roentgen per hour at your shelter exit point. Below 1 R per hour, brief trips outside become possible after the initial fallout period, assuming you have protective equipment and a compelling reason. You're still accumulating dose, but it's survivable for short durations. 20 minutes at 1 R per hour gives you about 0.3 Roentgens, well below acute danger thresholds. Above 5 R per hour, you're on lockdown, no exceptions. That dose rate will deliver acute radiation syndrome within hours of exposure. Above 25 R per hour, you can die within days even with brief exposure. Above 100 R per hour, you're in lethal territory. Minutes matter. The Geiger counter doesn't lie. It doesn't sugarcoat. It doesn't tell you what you want to hear. It measures physics and reports facts. That clicking rate is the difference between survivable risk and immediate death sentence. No Geiger counter? You're flying blind. You're guessing. You're playing Russian roulette with invisible bullets. You're relying on radio broadcasts and hoping they're accurate for your specific location. Fallout doesn't distribute evenly. Hotspots exist. Wind patterns create zones of high and low contamination. Your block might be safe while the next block over is lethal. This is the one piece of gear you cannot MacGyver. You can't improvise a radiation detector out of tinfoil and household electronics and hope. You can't download an app. Your phone's camera does not detect ionizing radiation, despite what internet myths claim. Either you have a real Geiger counter or dosimeter, or you wait for official all-clear signals and pray they're not broadcasting generic advice that doesn't apply to your microenvironment. Consumer Geiger counters range from $50 to several $100s. The cheap ones work. They're not lab-grade precise, but they tell you relative danger. That's enough. You don't need to know if it's 1.23 R per hour or 1.19 R per hour. You need to know if it's acceptable or lethal. Any functioning counter provides that information. The Geiger counter is hope and truth simultaneously. It gives you actionable information. It lets you make informed decisions instead of guessing and hoping. It's your flashlight in the dark, radioactive world. Listen to it. Trust it. Let it guide your survival decisions. Your intuition means nothing here. Your feelings are irrelevant. Only the measured dose rate matters.
The go or die decision when staying becomes more dangerous than leaving. Sheltering in place saves lives. It's the core strategy. Staying inside, behind shielding, waiting for decay to reduce dose rates, this is the default plan. But default plans encounter reality. Structures fail, supplies run out, injuries happen. Sometimes staying becomes more dangerous than the risk of leaving. The decision tree is actually straightforward despite the complexity of the situation. Scenario 1. Your structure is stable, your supplies are adequate, dose rates are high outside. You stay. No debate, no second guessing. You wait out the decay curve. 14 days minimum, monitor radio broadcasts. Check your Geiger counter periodically if you have one. Watch for structural warnings like new cracks or shifting. Ration supplies. Maintain shelter integrity. Be patient. Boredom and anxiety are not valid reasons to leave. Death from acute radiation syndrome is a compelling reason to stay. Scenario 2. Your structure is compromised, walls cracking, ceiling sagging, water intrusion, imminent collapse risk. You move to better shelter if possible. Priority 1 is finding stability with adequate shielding, a nearby basement, a neighbor's reinforced area, an underground parking garage. Even a ditch with some cover is better than a collapsing building. You accept the exposure risk during movement because staying guarantees death via structural failure or eliminates your shielding. You move fast, you move smart, you don't sightsee. Scenario 3. Your water supply is exhausted. You've stretched every drop. Dehydration is setting in. You evaluate the risk trade-off. Dehydration kills in 3 to 4 days. Radiation exposure from a brief scavenging run might not kill you for weeks, months, or years depending on dose. Choose slow poison over certain death. But you minimize exposure. You check your Geiger counter. You wait for the lowest dose rate window, usually early morning after overnight fallout settling. You cover every inch of skin, long sleeves, long pants, gloves, mask over nose and mouth, N95 respirator if you have it, cloth mask if you don't, bandana if you don't have that, any barrier between your lungs and fallout particles. Radiation from external particles on skin is bad. Radiation from internalized particles in your lungs is catastrophic because you can't remove them. They irradiate tissue continuously from inside. Wrap your head, beanie, hood, towel, anything. Hair collects particles like Velcro. You're minimizing contamination. Choose your route. Move perpendicular to fallout path if you know wind direction. Avoid low-lying areas, ditches, valleys where fallout collects. Stick to high ground. Avoid obviously contaminated areas like places directly downwind from the blast or areas with visible dust accumulation. Move with purpose. Every minute outside is exposure. Every breath in contaminated air is risk. Don't explore, don't investigate interesting noises, don't check on neighbors unless that's your specific mission. Get what you came for and get back to shelter. Time your trip. 15 minutes outside at 1 hour is 0.25 Roentgen's dose. That's survivable and won't cause acute symptoms. 30 minutes is 0.5 Roentgens, still okay for emergency supply runs. An hour is pushing it. Multiple hours means you're accumulating serious dose and risking the threshold for radiation sickness. Decontaminate when you return. Strip outer layers outside your shelter entrance. Bag them if possible. Wipe down before entering your clean zone. You're preventing cross-contamination between hot zone and safe zone. This isn't a Fallout 4 side quest where you fast travel and fight super mutants. This is life or death navigation through an invisible minefield where every decision is calculated risk versus benefit, and there are no perfect choices.
Scavenging in the hot zone, the art of strategic supply runs. If you must leave shelter to acquire supplies before radiation decays to safe levels, you're conducting what military planners call a high-risk operation in a contaminated environment. You're a scavenger in the most dangerous sense of the word. Target selection matters. You're looking for sealed supplies in structures that offer protection during your operation. Grocery stores and supermarkets, if not completely destroyed or heavily looted already, they contain exactly what you need: bottled water, canned goods, batteries, first aid supplies. The challenge is they're obvious targets and might have been stripped already, or might contain other desperate survivors who view you as competition for finite resources. Pharmacies, medical supplies, prescription medications, first aid equipment, critical if you're managing health conditions, also obvious targets. Gas stations, bottled water, packaged snacks, batteries, sometimes basic medical supplies, less thoroughly looted than supermarkets possibly. Residential homes, risky because of confrontation potential, but most homes have some emergency supplies: water in heaters and tanks, canned goods in pantries, medical supplies in bathrooms. Your strategy? Get in, get what you came for, get out. No exploring, no curiosity, no unnecessary risk extension. Avoid downwind zones. That's where the heaviest fallout concentrated. If the blast was to your west and wind was blowing east, anywhere east and slightly south or north of the blast site is hot, very hot, potentially lethal even after initial decay. Use your Geiger counter constantly if you have one. Watch for sudden increases in count rate. Those are hot spots. Avoid them completely. Avoid low-lying areas in drainage zones. Fallout particles wash into these areas with rain or settle into depressions. A ditch might have 10 times the dose rate of the surrounding high ground. Stay on ridges and elevated terrain when possible. Other survivors are the ultimate wildcard. Most people in a disaster work together. Some don't. Resources are finite. Fear makes people unpredictable. Desperation removes normal social constraints. Maintain distance from strangers. Not just physical distancing for safety, but radiation safety too. You don't know their contamination level. You don't know if they're thinking clearly or if radiation sickness is already affecting their judgment. Avoid conflict when possible. The last thing you need is injury in an environment where medical care doesn't exist. A cut that would be minor normally becomes life-threatening when you can't clean it properly or you can't reach antibiotics. A broken bone means reduced mobility when mobility might mean survival. Travel light, but purposefully. You need space for supplies you're acquiring. A backpack, reusable bags, something to carry water and food. But you also need mobility. Can't fight or run effectively while hauling 50 pounds of canned goods. Mark your route mentally. Street names, landmarks, anything that helps you navigate back. In a disaster zone, familiar areas become unrecognizable. Buildings collapse, street signs fall, smoke and dust obscure visibility. You cannot afford to get lost in a hot zone.
Set a time limit before you leave, 15 minutes, 30 minutes maximum. When your mental timer runs out, you return whether or not you found everything you wanted. Discipline saves lives. Greed and optimism kill. Every second outside is cumulative dose. Every breath of dusty air is potential internal contamination. Every surface you touch might have hot particles. You're not shopping. You're conducting a combat supply operation in hostile territory where the enemy is invisible physics. This is survival mathematics. Risk versus reward. Certain death from dehydration versus probable survival despite radiation exposure. You make the calculation, you accept the consequences. You move forward because stopping means dying. Medical realities. First aid when civilization is offline. Modern medicine is a miracle. Antibiotics, surgery, diagnostic imaging, emergency rooms, pharmacies, ambulances, all gone now, offline, unavailable. Your first aid kit is your entire healthcare system. What you have is what you get. There's no calling 911. There's no urgent care clinic. There's you, your supplies, and your knowledge. Basic first aid becomes critical. Bandages, gauze, medical tape, antiseptic solutions, alcohol wipes, hydrogen peroxide, antibiotic ointment. These simple items prevent infection, and infection will kill you in an environment where hospitals don't exist. Treat every wound aggressively. Clean it thoroughly, use antiseptic, apply antibiotic ointment, cover it with clean bandages, change dressings daily, watch for signs of infection. Redness, swelling, warmth, pus, red streaks. Infection in a post-disaster environment is a death sentence without antibiotics. Pain management matters. Over-the-counter pain relievers. Ibuprofen for inflammation and pain. Acetaminophen for pain and fever, aspirin for heart attack risk if someone has cardiac history. Stock them, use them. Pain isn't just discomfort. Severe pain increases stress, which compromises immune function, which reduces your survival chances. Prescription medications are critical for anyone with chronic conditions. Insulin for diabetics, blood pressure medications, heart medications, asthma inhalers, thyroid hormones, anti-seizure drugs. If you depend on medication to maintain basic function, you need reserves. At least a month's supply ideally, longer if possible. The cruel reality, if you run out of critical medications and can't resupply, you're facing a medical crisis in an environment with no medical response. Your options become ration what remains and pray, or risk a supply run to a pharmacy in a contaminated zone. Radiation sickness symptoms progress in stages, and there's nothing you can do to cure it. Only supportive care and hoping the dose wasn't fatal. Mild exposure, under 100 Roentgens. Nausea, fatigue, possible vomiting within hours. Symptoms resolve within days. You'll probably survive without long-term effects. Stay hydrated, rest. Let your body repair the damage. Moderate exposure, 100 to 400 Roentgens. Severe nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, fatigue within hours. Symptoms persist for days. Your bone marrow starts failing, which means your immune system crashes. Risk of infection skyrockets. Survival depends on dose and your baseline health. Some people recover, some don't. Severe exposure, above 400 Roentgens. You're in serious trouble. All the symptoms above, but worse. Hair loss, bleeding from gums and under skin, severe immune compromise, high fever, without hospital care including transfusions, antibiotics, and intensive support, mortality rate is high. Lethal exposure, above 600 Roentgens. Unsurvivable without extensive medical intervention that probably doesn't exist anymore. Death within days to weeks. You can't fix this with first aid. You can only provide comfort as the body fails systemically. Potassium iodide tablets protect your thyroid from radioactive iodine, but only if taken before or immediately after exposure, ideally within hours. After that, it's useless. The radioactive iodine has already been absorbed, the window closed. KI tablets are preventative, not curative. If you have KI tablets and a nuclear event happens, take them according to directions immediately. Adults and adolescents, 130 milligrams. Children, 65 milligrams. Infants, 32 milligrams. It saturates your thyroid with safe iodine so radioactive iodine can't bind. It does nothing for other radioactive isotopes. It's not a magic radiation shield, it's targeted protection for one organ against one specific isotope. Mental health is survival relevant. Stress, anxiety, fear, isolation, uncertainty all undermine decision-making and physical health. You're not weak for feeling overwhelmed. You're human. Acknowledge the feelings, focus on controllable actions, take care of basic needs, maintain routines when possible. Human psychology needs structure even in chaos.
You're now a field medic. No training? Doesn't matter. Necessity creates expertise. Do your best, accept that not everything is fixable. Save who you can, including yourself.
The critical gear checklist, what you should have assembled yesterday. Let's be honest, you probably don't have this kit ready. Most people don't. Emergency preparedness is something everyone agrees is important and almost nobody actually does until it's too late. But if by some miracle you thought ahead, or if you're reading this before the bombs drop and you're actually going to prepare, here's what gives you the best survival odds. Geiger counter or dosimeter, the single most important piece of equipment you can't improvise, shows you radiation dose rates in real time, guides your decisions about when to leave shelter or when to stay locked down. Cost $50 to several hundred, worth every penny when you're trying to decide if that door opens to life or death. Priority 1. Water, 1 gallon per person per day for minimum 2 weeks, 14 gallons per person. Family of 4 needs 56 gallons. Sounds like a lot, takes up space, you'll drink it all. Bottled water has shelf life measured in years if stored properly. Rotate stock. Use oldest first, replace what you use. Always maintain your minimum. Water is life. Food, non-perishable, ready-to-eat items, minimum 2 weeks per person. Canned goods, rice, pasta, peanut butter, protein bars, dried fruit, nuts. Stuff you can eat without cooking if necessary. Stuff that doesn't require refrigeration. Stuff with long shelf life. Calculate calories, aim for 1,500 to 2,000 per person per day minimum. Stock what you'll actually eat. No point having 15 cans of lima beans if you hate lima beans and won't eat them even when desperate. Communication. Battery-powered or hand-crank emergency radio, AM/FM minimum, shortwave better if you can get it. NNOA weather radio frequencies. This is your link to official instructions. Your phone will die. Cell towers will fail. Internet will collapse. Radio waves still work. Cost $20 to $50. Essential. Shelter sealing materials. Duct tape, plastic sheeting, heavy-duty garbage bags, plastic tarps. You're sealing vents, doors, windows, any air gap, keeping fallout dust out of your shelter zone. Cheap, effective, available at any hardware store. Stock multiple rolls of tape. Stock several large plastic sheets. You'll use more than you think. Decontamination and hygiene. Soap, towels, wet wipes. Large garbage bags for contaminated clothing, rubber gloves, dust masks, or N95 respirators. You're cleaning fallout off skin and clothing. You're bagging contaminated items. You're protecting lungs from radioactive dust. All cheap, all critical. First aid. Comprehensive first aid kit. Bandages, gauze, tape, antiseptic, antibiotic ointment, pain relievers, anti-diarrheal meds, any prescription medications you need. If you have specific medical needs, stock accordingly. Diabetic, insulin reserves, asthmatic, extra inhalers, heart condition, your cardiac meds. Don't rely on being able to reach a pharmacy after the blast. Light and power. Flashlights, extra batteries, lots of batteries. LED flashlights last longer. Hand crank flashlights work when batteries die. Candles for backup, but fire risk is real. Matches, lighters. You're living without grid power potentially for weeks. You need light for safety and sanity. Tools and miscellaneous. Multi-tool or knife. Can opener for panned goods. Whistle for signaling. Local maps, pen and paper for notes. Matches in waterproof container, paracord or rope. These are the little things that make survival less miserable. That's the kit. Not fancy, not expensive overall, just practical items that address the specific challenges of sheltering in place during nuclear fallout. Total cost if you start from nothing, $300 to $500 depending on family size and choices. That's less than most people spend on entertainment in a month. It's the best insurance policy you never want to use. The critical knowledge advantage. Preparation isn't about hoarding. It's about having the few critical tools and the knowledge to use them when systems fail. You don't need a bunker, you need basics and brains. Store your kit where you can grab it quickly, not scattered throughout the house. Consolidated, ready, accessible even in chaos. Check it annually, rotate water and food, replace expired items, test batteries, update medications. Maintenance takes an hour per year and ensures everything works when you need it. Most people won't do this. Most people will assume it won't happen or that someone else will save them. Those people will be the ones panicking and dying when the sirens sound. You can be different. You can be ready. You can give yourself and your family a fighting chance. Or you can hope really hard and see how that works out when reality arrives.
The long weeks, surviving the psychological wasteland. Physical survival is one challenge. Psychological survival is another, equally important battle. You're locked in a small space with limited supplies, no entertainment, no communication except radio broadcasts, no certainty about the future, and the knowledge that the world outside is poisoned. That's a recipe for mental breakdown. Boredom becomes crushing, anxiety becomes paralyzing, fear becomes constant background noise.
Your brain wasn't designed for this scenario. Your psychology expects routine, social interaction, purpose, hope. You have none of those now. Structure helps. Create a routine even if it's arbitrary. Wake up at the same time, eat meals at set times, assign tasks, check supplies, monitor radio, maintain shelter, exercise if space allows, read if you have books, anything that creates predictable patterns. Human brains need purpose. Find small goals, organize supplies more efficiently, improve shielding, plan for different scenarios, write in a journal, document your experience. Future you, if there is one, will want this record. Future historians definitely will. Social connection matters if you're sheltering with others. Talk, share feelings, support each other, avoid blame and conflict. You're all stressed, you're all scared. Fighting depletes emotional resources everyone needs for survival. If you're alone, talk to yourself, out loud. It sounds crazy, but it maintains language processing and provides auditory stimulation your brain craves. Loneliness plus stress plus fear creates psychological breakdown faster than almost anything else. Ration hope carefully. Don't assume rescue is coming tomorrow. Don't despair that everything is permanently destroyed. Stay in the present. Focus on the next meal, the next supply check, the next sleep cycle. Long-term thinking invites either false optimism or crushing despair. Present thinking maintains stability. Children need special consideration if you're sheltering with kids. They don't understand radiation. They don't grasp the scope of disaster. They know they're scared and bored and want to go outside. Explain in age-appropriate terms. Maintain routine for them especially. Games, stories, activities. Keep them occupied and feeling safe even when you're terrified. This is the part survival guides don't cover, the psychological endurance test, the mental marathon in a dark room with no finish line visible. Humans are incredibly resilient when we have to be. We survived ice ages in caves. We survived plagues in medieval towns. We survived world wars and genocides and disasters throughout history. We're survival machines when activated. You can do this, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, however long it takes. The alternative is giving up, and giving up means dying, and dying means the disaster won. Spite is a valid survival motivator. Stay alive to see what happens next. Stay alive because the world might rebuild, and you want to be part of it. Stay alive because you're human, and we don't quit easily.
The final truth: choosing survival in a broken world. This isn't a Hollywood ending. There's no dramatic music swell, no inspirational speech that makes everything okay, no guarantee that following these steps means you survive. Nuclear war is the worst-case scenario humanity created for itself. It's apocalypse-level disaster. It's societal collapse at high speed. It's everything bad happening simultaneously while making future bad things more likely. But here's the thing: survival is possible. Not guaranteed, not easy, not pleasant, but possible. Physics works in your favor if you understand it. Radioactive decay happens whether you panic or stay calm. Shielding reduces dose whether you're optimistic or pessimistic. Water and food sustain life whether you're afraid or confident. Knowledge is your greatest weapon. Not a gun, not a bunker, knowledge. Understanding what radiation is and how to minimize exposure. Understanding that time and distance and shielding are your trinity of protection. Understanding that 2 weeks of patience might save your life. Preparation is your greatest advantage. Having supplies before you need them, having a plan before crisis hits, having practiced the basics before you're doing them in terror. Community might be your greatest resource. If you're with others, cooperation multiplies survival chances. Pooled supplies, shared labor, emotional support. Humans are social creatures. We survive better together when we actually work together. But ultimately, survival starts with a choice you make right now before anything happens. Do you prepare, or do you hope it never happens and ignore the possibility? Do you learn the science, or do you stay ignorant and rely on luck? Do you take responsibility for your own survival, or do you assume someone else will save you? The bombs don't care about your choice. The radiation doesn't care. Physics doesn't care. But your choice determines your odds when the unthinkable becomes real. You can be ready. You don't need a fortune. You don't need special access. You need $300, a free weekend, and the willingness to take preparedness seriously. You can learn this information. You're learning it right now. You understand more about nuclear survival than 99% of people just from watching this video.
You can give yourself a fighting chance in the worst possible scenario humanity faces. Or you can scroll past this video and forget about it and go back to assuming everything will be fine and nothing bad will happen because it hasn't happened yet. Your choice, your life, your responsibility. When the sirens sound, when the flash lights up the horizon, when you have 30 seconds to make decisions that determine if you see next month, you'll know whether you chose wisely now. The government has plans. The military has protocols. The rich have bumpers. You have this information. Use it or ignore it. That's on you. I'm just here to tell you what the science says, what the physics dictates, what gives you the best odds of surviving something most people can't imagine surviving. Stay inside for 48 hours minimum. Seal your shelter. Maximize shielding. Ration supplies. Wait for radiation to decay. Follow official instructions. Use your Geiger counter. Make smart risk calculations. Take care of yourself and anyone sheltering with you. That's the plan. Simple, not easy, but clear. You wanted the ultimate survival plan for nuclear war without a bunker. That's it. That's everything. Immediate actions in the first 15 minutes. Shelter-in-place strategy for the first 48 hours. Long-term survival tactics for 2 weeks and beyond. The essential gear you need. The science that explains why it works. The psychological challenges you'll face. The decision frameworks for when to stay and when to go. No bunker required. Just knowledge, basic supplies, and the determination to survive when most people die. Can you do it? Yeah, probably. If you prepare, if you stay calm, if you follow the science instead of panic. Will you do it? That depends on whether you take this seriously now or whether you wait until it's too late and you're staring at a mushroom cloud wondering why you didn't listen. The choice is yours. It always was. It always will be. Now tell me in the comments, what's the one item you're adding to your survival kit after this? Or are you still convinced it'll never happen and this is all paranoid doomsday fantasy? Let's see who's actually ready and who's just hoping that hope is a strategy. Because when the flash comes, hope doesn't stop gamma rays. Knowledge does, preparation does, and shielding does. Be smart, be ready, be the person who survives to rebuild instead of the person who becomes a statistic. Welcome to Nuclear Survival for People Without Trust Funds. Class dismissed. Don't be late for the apocalypse. And whatever you do, when that flash lights up the horizon, don't stare at it. Close your eyes, hit the ground, get inside. Your life starts with that first correct decision. Make it count.